Welcome to this Toad for Oracle editor tips and tricks. Hopefully you will learn some new things about Toad for Oracle. This will be specifically about things that you can do in Toad for Oracle's editor and a few of the interesting settings. First of all, what we're going to start with is the right-click menu. There's two right clicks that are very important in the editor. One down here on the navigation bar. If you right click, you'll see here you can configure your desktop, you can save the desktop. So once you've customized it to how you like, you don't have to worry about resetting it each time you start Toad. As you can see, all the tabs that are open are highlighted here. So once again, if you're doing things like debug, you can set up your watches. If you're working with version control, if you don't want to see any of these, you can turn those off. The other important right click is to right click inside the editor. Here you're going to see all sorts of options that you can do. Anything from simply being able to split your screen left, right, top, bottom, all the way down to being able to reverse engineer your existing query into the graphical query builder within Toad for Oracle. One of the other things that's very nice in here is the ability to refactor your code, whether to comment large areas in your code, convert to ANSI, or convert back to Oracle syntax, and several other things in here. So if you take nothing else away from today's presentation, remember Toad is a very right-click happy tool, and if you right-click in all sorts of different places, you're going to find all sorts of interesting things to do. So if we go over to a blank SQL template, what you'll see is there's nothing in here. You have the navigator window, and if you want more room, you can click on the little thumbtack to hide that. Now, sometimes in large PL SQL packages, procedures, functions, it's very nice to be able to click and navigate through your code that way. But here, if you're starting a new PL SQL package, procedure, function, what you'll see right up here is it says New PL SQL Object. Toad for Oracle has many templates built in, and you can add your own. We will see that in a moment when we go to the options. So what do I want to do? Well, if I want to create a new procedure, I select one of those templates, and here we just have some default names. You'll be able to add in all your own templates in there. We will just call this Demo Proc. And down here under default, we just have the default template, and this is where if you've created custom templates or if your project or organization has certain coding standards, you can build those in. And now when I click OK, you will see that in my editor, I've got the ability to start the procedure, interesting documentation, and code here to begin. So this is very nice in here. Now, if you're wanting to add or build onto existing PL SQL objects, what you can do is you can hit Control Spacebar. And if you do that, Toad for Oracle has about 30 or 40 templates already built for you. You can go in here, and we were going to show this in a moment on how to create your own, edit existing ones, and remove ones that you don't think you'll use to remove the clutter. But here, once again, if I just click on the anonymous block, you'll see that code is added right in here as well. So this is a very nice feature, these two templates. The one you remember here is Control Spacebar, and the other is up here where you can create the new object. Now, if we go back to this bad format SQL, hopefully none of you have ever written code like this, but sometimes we're in a hurry or we're just focused on the task at hand. We're not worried about how nice our code looks, the aesthetics, the maintainability of it. And as you can see in this code, we have some keywords that are lowercase, some keywords that are uppercase. The first line contains many clauses. In order for me to clean this up, it's a real pain in the neck to put my cursor there, hit enter, try to line everything up. Toad has a formatter built in. Up here on the toolbar, even though it's kind of cluttered, hopefully you can see it, there's a little bucket icon with 2 brackets. But if you can't see that, just remember, right-click in your editor, and you can come down here to Formatting Tools, and what you'll see in Format is that little bucket icon. Anytime you do a right-click or drop-down menu and you see an icon next to it, it's letting you know it's available on the toolbar. So clicking Format will clean up this code based on a set of rules that are already built in Toad. But you can come down in here to the Formatter options and customize those rules, whether for your own personal preference, your company organization standards, or project rules. But here, watch what happens to the code when I select Format. What you'll see is we put in a simple but nice little header here. All the keywords are uppercased, and all those clauses are now lined up, neatly indented on their own line. So very nice to go from this to that with one mouse click. Now, when we're in here, and we're going to go show where you can set all these things up here in just a few moments when we go into the options. Some other things that can be very helpful to developers are our code snippets and our object palette. So if you come up to the view menu, you will see two things here, the object palette and code snippets. We were also going to talk about SQL recall, another very nice little feature here in the editor. But first, code snippets. If I click on those, and what you'll see is I already had those selected, so they will mouse out over here. Oops, we got a little error. That's never good. We might have to restart here. There, and we will just restart Toad, and hopefully this doesn't ever happen to you. But when it does, it's very easy to recover, and that's one of the nice things about saving your desktop here. So what I'm going to do is just restart my Toad for Oracle. We will come back in and look at the code snippets, the object palette. We've looked at the format in there, and as you'll see, if something like this happens, any document that you had open, or SQL that you had open in your editor, you can select to recover. You can ignore it by just hitting cancel. And then, of course, we will just go ahead and sign on in, and we get right back to where we are. So Toad makes it very easy to recover if your desktop locks up or your network drops, something like that. So here I'm back in my editor. And what I'm going to do is we will say, let's create a new editor here, new tab, and I'm going to hit Control N. We have name SQLs, and we're going to show how to set these up in a little bit. I'm going to grab that bad format, and once again, we're going to go through the little process of coming here, formatting the code. So now once I'm here, what I can do is maybe I want to put something like current date or add months, some sort of date function, number function, maybe an optimizer hint into my code. Well, this is where I can come up to the view menu, select code snippets, and over here you'll see that they're pop out. Well, under the cursor attributes here, what you'll see is that we have all sorts of categories. We've got date conversion functions, format functions. If you're doing PL SQL, you can set up your own unit testing. You can add in your own custom functions here. So I mentioned optimizer hints. So here under date functions, and I just want to put current date in there. You'll see I click on the little code snippet. It describes what it does and how to use it. And I can double click or drag and drop it, put it into my code, and there you'll see I'm ready to go. So this is a real nice feature. Now, one of the things that we also see in the editor that many people either like or loathe is what we call our code assist. If I type out a table name here, OW, customers, hit my period, many of you have seen this window pop up. If you like it, you can just let it pop up and go ahead and grab whatever piece of code, whatever column you want to add that in there. If you don't like it, the next time it pops up, you'll see right here, you will see right here the little options button there. We've come into the editor. So while we're in here, we're going to look at some of the editor options. As I mentioned, we're under Code Assist. If you do not like that pop-up window, here where it says Auto Invoke, you can just toggle that off. And if you like it, you can leave it on. But if you want a little more think time, we can come in here and say, let me have a little bit more time. So I can choose a little bit more time. Some of the other things that are very nice here that you can customize and make your experience in the editor even better are the auto replace. We can put in shortcuts such as NDF for no data found or RAE for raise application error. But if there's certain words that you mistype all the time, like select, I always leave the first E out, you can put in things over here. You can add your own, you can remove ones you don't like, you can make it case sensitive, disable this, you can share it with other Toad users, or if you're working on Toad at home and office, can make sure your office is in sync. We saw the code assist. There are code templates, and here's those SQL, PL SQL code templates that we looked at when you hit Control Spacebar. Here's where you can come in and add your own, edit existing ones, remove any, and once again, import, export to share with other Toad users. So these things are all under the editor options in Toad for Oracle, and there's a few other things in there. One other thing here in the SQL recall, SQL recall is a feature in Toad where Toad automatically saves your last 500 validly executed SQL statements. You can change that number down to 100. You can put it up to 1,000 or more if you like. Well, what is that SQL recall? Well, here what you can see is if I execute this SQL, we had the bad format. We'll reload that one in here, and we'll go ahead and execute it here. Is that if I come up once again to that view menu, you will see there's SQL recall. And all you need to remember is F8. If I go ahead and click the F8, what you'll see is we get a little pop-up window on the side. And we open this up here, and there's two tabs. There's recent and saved. And if you don't see anything up on this bar, just go ahead and open up your saved SQLs a little bit more till you see group by. Here, it will default to none, so we can just see all our recently executed SQLs. So when I click on that, like we can see on my little bad format one, it previews it down here, and I can see that's the code that I want over here. So this is very nice in here. Now, if you're working with multiple databases, you can look at it via database. You're working in multiple schemas, you can see I've got a Quest Prod, Quest Deb, Quest Reporting. I can drill down in and see that via schema. I can also see it via when it was executed in here. So I can go back if I know I executed something a couple days ago, a couple weeks ago, I need to go look for it. I can go drill down in and see it. Now you'll see there's this other tab that says saved. And if you remember when I was in here, I hit Control N. Well, what's nice about that here is if we go back to a tab here, like this code here, and we decide to save it, instead of doing the save file or the save file as most of you do, what you should do in here, a nicer way to organize your scripts, your SQL in the Toad editor, is come up to the editor drop-down menu, and at the very bottom, you'll see it says add to save SQLs. So if I do that, what you can see here is it says default. So if you're a developer or a DBA, you might have different categories of scripts that you want to organize by. So instead of creating your own folders and when trying to open up, try to remember where you put it, Toad does that for you. So here I've created categories such as like my backup scripts, my demo scripts, log scripts, table space scripts, unit testing scripts. All you have to do is type the name over default. If you just want everything in that default folder, that is fine. And here we will just type in demo SQL 1 and hit OK. So now if we go back and hit that F8, what you will see in here is there's our categories. So we're looking by categories, and I can come under my demo SQL and we can look for that code, and wherever we put it in there, you will see that code in there. So it's a very nice feature in here that you can come in and find your SQL however it is organized in here. Now, you don't need to worry about always hitting F8 when you're in an editor. What you can do is we have some recently executed SQL. You can hit the Alt key, the ALT key with either your up arrow or down arrow, and you can scroll through all your recently executed SQL to find the SQL statement that you want. Now, if you've saved the SQL like we just did, like we came back in here and you want to find it, once again, if you hit Control N, N as in named, N as in Nancy, here are all my name SQL statements, and I can find these, and I will just go ahead and grab this one, and we've loaded in the SQL statement. So this is a way to make you much more productive in your Toad environment. Now, you've noticed this SQL here is pretty simple, and if we go ahead and execute it, sometimes when you execute in Toad, you get this processing script, basically a long-running window. And oftentimes this kind of locks you out of doing anything else in Toad. And we know most of you are very busy doing 10 things at once, and rarely do you get to do anything uninterrupted. So what's very nice in Toad for Oracle is instead of doing this long-running SQL and not being able to do anything, what we can do is you can either come up to the editor menu, and one of the options is execute SQL via TSR. TSR stands for Toad Script Runner. Or what you can do is here, instead of hitting execute script, hit the little down arrow, and you'll see the first option says execute via Toad Script Runner. When I click on that, what happens is we get a nice little miniature Toad window. It's using the same connection information, the same session information, so the DBAs will be happy. Everything is still executing in this same Toad. And you'll see it says Toad Script Runner. You have that same process script window. But now if I come back to Toad for Oracle, you'll see I can keep working. I can click around. I can do all sorts of things in here while that is running. And what's very nice is you can have as many Toad Script Runner windows open and running at one time. So if you have several long-running scripts, you can execute those. You can be busy working with those. Now, another nice thing in Toad for Oracle, and we'll just open up a script again. I'm going to hit Control N, for you remember, for the named SQLs, is we have the ability to examine your code with an Oracle Explain Plan. Now, if you click on the Explain Plan tab and it remains blank down here, just come up, follow that little icon, click on it, and you have the Explain Plan in here. And most of the time, the Explain Plan is in the traditional Oracle view. This can be kind of difficult to understand. It's a little bit odd in how it's set up. It's not in numeric order and not always intuitive. So if you right click in the Explain Plan and go to display mode, instead of doing the traditional Oracle tree, you can set it over to plain English. And now what you'll see is it's in numeric order and sentence-like structure. So this is a very nice way to try to analyze your Explain Plan. Now, another very nice feature in the editor that many people are not aware of, and let me go to the schema browser. I'm going to go to a package, and I'm going to load a package into my editor. So whether you've got existing code or you're writing new code, there's a feature in here that you may have seen that says top 20. This is our code analysis. This allows you to test your code as you're developing it against all sorts of different rules in different areas, whether you're looking at code correctness, maintainability, code efficiency, or you can look at all rules. Now, some people don't like this active while they're typing, because what you'll see here is there's these little squiggles, and if you mouse on a squiggle, it tells you which rule is violated. Within code analysis, there are 3 categories of violations. There's informational, which are these little blue dots. There's warnings, and then there's fatal. And fatal would be code correctness. Now, you can come into the Toad options here, once again, and under the code analysis, it defaults to check rules as you type. But some people don't like all those squiggles popping up, annoying them while they're trying to focus on their task at hand. So you can turn those off. And then once you've developed your code, you go back to the schema browser and you can say right click, load this into code analysis. And now we load up a new feature, and you can do several objects. We'll go to our functions tab, and we'll grab a few functions here, and we'll load those in the code analysis. And then we can select all these to run by all those rules. And you'll see if we run those by all the rules in here, it gives us a nice little report. So this is something at the end of a development cycle that will tell you, what is production ready. All these things have a nice Toad code rating of 1, and we can move forward. So these are some of the nice things. We've looked at the right click, the templates, the code snippets, the formatting, your save SQL, the SQL recall, the Toad script runner, the code analysis, and explain plan. Hopefully these features will let you get more out of Toad, make the Toad experience developing in Oracle much more productive. I want to thank everyone for joining this, and if you have any questions, you can always contact your sales rep at Toad or at Quest, or you can go to toadworld.com, and if you're working in Toad for Oracle, click on Oracle, come here, click and learn more. And what's nice is there's some general information about some of the things that we can accomplish here in Toad for Oracle, much deeper than just some editor tips and tricks, white papers, and there's all sorts of excellent blogs, and there's a forum where you can ask your questions. These questions go out not only to Quest people, but people worldwide who are registered on Toad World. There's also free web training, technical documentation, support, and lots more information. So once again, thank you very much for attending this session on the Toad editor.